Hello again, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all back to my channel. Thanks for coming back and following along with the case. Okay, guys, so grab your popcorn, and I hope you guys are going to like the story I'm about to share with you all today. So today we're going to be covering the Idaho murders case once again. And today I want to talk to you guys about Dylan Mortensen's statement on the affidavit for the Bryan K case. And then we're going to talk about cell phone pings, some that should probably get looked at or probably have been looked at already by the FBI and law enforcement, but we're going to mention it on my channel here just in case. You never know, and we're all trying to do what we can to help. And lastly, we're going to cover Bryan K's defense and what type of things they might try to use to debunk a lot of the evidence that is being presented towards them. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. DM stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. DM stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Goncalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. A short time later, DM said she heard who she thought was Goncalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of records obtained from a forensics download of Cornado's phone showed this could also have been Cornado, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. DM stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. DM stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Cornado's room. DM then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm gonna help you." At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Cornado's bedroom. DM stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built, with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock face. The male walked toward the back of the sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room. After seeing the male, DM did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. The combination of DM's statements to law enforcement, reviews of forensic downloads of records from BF and DM's phone, and video of a suspect video described below leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. During the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the ISP forensic team by first using a presumptive blood test and then amino-black, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. The detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of a Vans-type shoe sole. Just outside the door of DM's bedroom, located on the second floor, this is consistent with DM's statement regarding the suspect's path of travel. And I want to stop right there because we're going to talk about that a little later. But I want to go back a little bit to what we just finished reading about Dylan Mortensen's statement. And first I want to ask you guys what you think. What are your thoughts? What have you guys thought about, regarding her side of the story? Do you guys believe this? Or do you guys trust that all this she said in her statement is true? Let me know what you think below. And I also want to dissect this myself a little bit. After she locked herself in her room, I get it. She was in shock. She was like a deer in the headlights, as they say, as he walked right past her. Why didn't she react later, though? I get being in shock and everything, but if she was in shock, how was she able to walk back into her room and lock the door if she was in shock and couldn't move or do anything? You'd think that after locking yourself with your door closed behind you, you would then be able to make a phone call, to 911, or at least to the family members, or at least to Bethany Funk, which was downstairs, to at least warn her, hey, there's a killer up here, don't come up here, or lock your door, call the police, anything. But she could have reacted also like an hour later, 2 hours later, 3 hours later, 4. You get what I'm trying to say, right? It didn't have to take her over 6 hours to finally come to her senses. Unless I just thought that maybe she locked herself in her room possibly, and maybe she was drunk, and possibly from being drunk and waiting for him to leave, she probably passed out or fell asleep waiting for him to leave and didn't wake up until later. But then again, she did call a few other people over before the police, so I don't know what that's about. And then she doesn't call the police until 11:56, or we're just going to call it 12 because that's pretty much already noon, right? So it's more 12 than 11 o'clock by then. And, one idea that I have is that, and I'm going to ask you guys to forgive me for this, but then again, it's all just speculation, right? And that's why we're all here. We're trying to figure this case out. So I was trying to say that, have they tried looking up Dylan's cell phone provider record just like they did for Kohberger? Like, maybe they should check to see if any of her ping locations were at a certain place at the same time as of Bryan's phone location. They should see if they match up, or like maybe their phones were at the same place at, the same time or around the same time. Maybe plotting this together. Who knows? It could be anyone at this point, and we're not 100% sure that it's him yet, Either way, if it is him, what if he tries to outsmart the law and he ends up getting away with it? Then what? We need to make sure we're prepared for every argument that they're going to bring. And I just hope that Dylan's not holding back anything, at least like not crucial information, crucial evidence that would protect or possibly clear him. I hope not, for the victim's sake and the family's sake and just for the sake of justice overall. I also wanted to mention about those phone ping locations. I want to add to that a little bit. They should also be checking the phone location for Bryan's phone, maybe on the day of the vigil, to see if he was at that location of the school around the vigil, or maybe he turned off his phone again when he got to the vigil and was going to it. But at the same time, I come to think of it, I guess that could be irrelevant to a certain extent, because I'm pretty sure they can't really use that for the case, because, if he was there or not doesn't mean he's the killer, right? A lot of people were there. So, moving on now. The last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, it's the last topic, but it's going to be a little lengthier than the first. I wanted to close with, these defense arguments that Kohberger's attorney or their group could try to come up with or say to kind of push back on some of the things that they're accusing him of, if not all of them. Hopefully not. For example, the first one would be, and we're going to start from the top with all the things they're accusing him of, so let's get started. The first point of evidence that they bring up is the tan leather sheath that read K-Bar USMC, or U.S. Marine Corps for those that aren't aware of the initials, and the USMC Eagle Globe and Anchor insignia. It was found to have served as evidence of a single source of DNA with suspect's profile found on the button snap of the knife's sheath. He can say it was placed to frame him there, and how he got his DNA on it is beyond me. They did say it was just a single trace, but he probably has had enough time to come up with a cover-up story for that, as simple as, let's say He could just say, I walked into a store someday and I saw a knife and I held it, I touched it. I ended up not liking it and I walked away. And then somebody else could have easily came in after me or at any other moment and purchased that same knife after I had already touched it. So then maybe that person, saw him or stalked him and left it there planted for him. Maybe they have a similar car or a white car. Who knows? Maybe there's somebody out there smarter than Kohberger, and they just left it there at the scene to try to confuse people and try to get somebody else involved. So that way you could lose your focus on them and have your attention elsewhere. And I'm not going to touch on the Jack-in-the-Box bag that they found in Xana's room or with her name being related to the crime or being linked to Bryan. We don't know for sure yet, but I feel like a lot of people have tried to come up with a story for that, and the DoorDash delivery guy has been cleared, supposedly, according to authorities. And also, if the guy was linked to the knife, then that would be super easy, right? They would have already checked his DNA long ago, walk up into that Jack-in-the-Box and, track his DNA or check the Jack-in-the-Box cameras, easily. What time did he get back after the delivery? What time does his time card say? Stuff like that. I think it would be pretty easy. But moving on to the car now, I don't know how they'll know for a fact the car he owns is the exact same car at the scene unless they find actual footage with the plates and him inside the actual car, or factual proof of him being anywhere near the victims at the time, or the footage of him. Then again, we still don't know if officials have been able to identify or find any trace of blood or anything from the victims or from him, like any blood in the car. They still haven't told us, what they found in the Elantra just yet. They might bring it up in the court soon. And for example, when they ask him, why was his phone turned off around that time and where was he going and stuff like that, he can easily respond with something as simple as, hey, I got hungry and I wanted to go out and buy some food. And I noticed that my phone was low battery probably, or he's not going to say probably, that's just me saying it, but he's going to say, I know my phone battery was low and I just decided to turn it off, and I guess just kept it off because I didn't need it. God knows where he was, at the time. But then afterwards, when he was almost going back home, he knew that he was going to be charging it soon, so he decided to turn it back on right before he got home. I sometimes do that myself, turn off my phone when I go out, and then if it's low battery, I turn it off, turn it back on when I get home or when I'm close by, because I know it'll last me long enough to get me the rest of the way. Don't get me wrong, if he turns out to be the killer, I hope this guy gets the chair for all I care, but one thing I'm afraid of, he might be good at cover-up stories too, or he probably already has one or two lined up depending on the evidence that they bring up. I mean, if I could come up with this stuff, and I've never committed any such crimes, and I didn't study criminology, and I also didn't send out a survey trying to learn more things about criminals, trying to get better at it and asking them what they did, to be even better at it and get away with their heinous crimes. However, I did want to point out that I did notice the marks on his hand and lower arm or forearm on the side on the video cam for when they pulled him over. And, he could easily say something like, I cut myself or with something, or a person on a bike crashed into me and, I cut myself. I was crossing the street or whatever. And about the times that they say that he was in the Moscow area, a few times, I think they said 12 specifically, and most of them were specifically at night except for one of them. And I heard, but don't quote me on this, but I heard that they were going to say, or he was going to say that he was secretly dating Kaylee or something. And in that case, he could say, that's the reason why, he was at the residence so much, because him and her would see each other at night, or, that could be the reason his alibi, to be in the area. And that could also be the reason why, his prints were on the sheath, or his DNA was on the sheath. Maybe he did touch it. Maybe he was in there, but not for those reasons, not for murder. As in, like, maybe he was there to just see Kaylee and be with her. I know that sounds a little far-fetched, but, at this point, they could try to say anything to defend themselves, so we never know what we're going to hear. And trust me when I say this, with this type of case that we're dealing with, we should not be surprised anymore. We've seen so many crazy things, heard so many things. This case has gone on for, like, almost 2 months now. I don't know, guys, just some of the things, it sounds like, they could find a loophole in it, but who knows for a fact? No one does. Unfortunately, there's a million guys out there, too, with bushy eyebrows, so we can't really just go based off of that. As for all his other locations, that doesn't mean anything. Anyone can go to Kate's Cup of Joe or go to Albertsons and buy anything. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the killer. I'm sorry, guys. It's just, I'm being honest here. And I wish law enforcement and the FBI could hear this. That way they could, be ready for these type of questions or these type of comebacks. That way they're prepared for everything and they do everything they can to win the case. That's what we're all hoping for. We want justice for the families and the victims. And we need to have a really strong case. Then again, if they do find the blade in the car, or they find blood, or, the victim's blood, then it's over for him. I hope that's the case and we can all go back to our lives now, because we really need to get to the bottom of this case. This has gone on for long enough. We can't have this guy out there just like whatever, We need to have him put away for good. And by put away for good, I don't mean him, having special accommodations, eating vegan meals and watching TV and living rent-free with 3 meals a day. That's not what I mean, guys. In a way, I feel like justice is never going to be served for these families, because if they do, give them the life or death sentence, so what? 4 people are still dead. If we could bring them back after they give him the death penalty, then that would be justice. Or if we could possibly, give him the death penalty 4 times somehow and have him come back to life and do it over again 4 times, I think that would bring justice, but that's never going to happen. But if we at least get 1 death penalty, I guess that could bring a little bit of comfort to the families, but not nowhere near what they really need, and not to cover up for all the trauma and all these horrible things they just finished going through. And that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you think down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Give a thumbs up, and I hope to catch you guys on the next one. Stay safe.